Welcome back to 90 Seconds Plus for the Invercargill City Mayor Nobby Clark. This is our New Year's edition, so we're going to have a look at what's happening this year and his plans as we ease to the end of his mayoralty. Now, so take away, Nobby. I see you've got a big list on your whiteboard there.
I do have. Yeah. So, obviously, I've got a shortened list from what I did have, but there are some real critical things this year. The most critical thing is that we cannot afford rates to be up around 10%. Some other councils are still over 20%. But we cannot afford that. We've got people at the bottom end of our society, low incomes, part-time work, single-parent families. They are struggling to pay rates now. They do not need another 10% on top. That just erodes away their money for food each week. It's as simple as that. And while the government hasn't done anything about grocery costs, power costs, petrol costs, we cannot be adding to that pile. So I've signal to my colleagues that I think we should be very close to the inflation rate this year. So inflation rate at the moment is 2.2%. I think if we could be under 4% for a rate increase, we'd be doing really well as the initial step. Certainly not the 8 to 10% which staff initially asked for. So I'm looking for some support to push this through. I think I'll have the numbers around the table. People are realising we just can't go down this track. But it's not a matter of just cutting costs the traditional way, which is to not fill vacancies as they occur, which interferes with your service delivery. The biggest thing is that there are two things on the revenue side and one thing on the services side. So any business will tell you, on one side you've got the level of money that comes into your business for the services that you provide. We've got that. But that revenue stream is not just rates. We tend to, every time the services go up, the cost of the services go up, we tend to just bump rates by the same amount. My thing is, we've got revenue streams that are not rates. So for argument's sake, we've got investments with some of our companies in Holdco. So we need to get the maximum out of that. We've sold some assets recently to make sure we get a better return. But the other side is we're sitting on Donovan Farm, and you've heard me talk about this for 2 years now, and I'm still not getting traction on that. It's sort of May next year before they lodge the papers, and then the papers will probably take 9 months. And even if the minister agrees to that we can change that to residential, we're up against agricultural land classifications, which is absolute nonsense to call that high-grade land from an agricultural perspective. And we'll be up against the fact that when you sell a reserve, you can only use the money for reserves thereafter. Well, that's one way around it, but the minister can exempt that. And we would make a case for using some of that money to finish off the museum, have some play space in the city, whatever. And we just need to get that money, and that needs to be a priority, because if you don't, we're going to hit a wall, and that wall will be, do we bump rates up or do we bring our costs down? And our biggest expenditure and costs, other than what we do under the ground, which is the 3 water staff, the biggest cost is our personnel cost. So that's salary, wages, lawyers, contractors and consultants. And we've had some examples last year of paying $750,000 for a group of consultants, and I just think that's outrageous. And so we just cannot repeat that behaviour. We need to have the expertise internally, and we just need to get on and do things without being totally reliant on very expensive consultants to do everything for us. And we need to take some risks in that, and if we don't get it right, we don't get it right. But those rate increases have to come down.
Just for clarity, just because even when this was put out for consultation, it was very misleading, I think, the way the staff put it out. They used images and everything else of Donovan Park. Just for clarity, you're talking Donovan Farm, not the park.
Need to clarify.
So
when you go into Donovan Park, which is a big reserve, there are 3 parts to it. 2 rugby grounds at one end, the bit that runs through the middle where you can go through and see the ponds, you can drive through there to Anderson's Park. Neither of those are being touched. On the right-hand side, behind the old Donovan restaurant, is a farm, 37 hectares. We run some sheep on it. A&P show use it 1 day a year, and the equestrian people use it for horse jumping and fairly infrequently. Both those functions could go to Ascot Raceway. They'd take them tomorrow.
It's so underutilised, that place.
So that money, that 37 hectares, I can conservatively get $1 million a hectare, because a hectare is 2.5 acres. So out that end, I'll get that sort of money. If we got 30 million out of the 37 million, we would solve all our fiscal problems going forward for the next 5 years. It's huge. At the moment, it gives us little or nothing. A little bit of rental property from the farmer that runs the stock there, but nothing else. But it is problematic.
So,
really
so other things on the list, you've got the recycling contract. Is that coming up again? Is it?
Yep. So technically, that contract expires this year that we're currently coming into, 2025. I've already signalled that it's my expectation that that contract rolls on till 2027, so that that contract can be considered alongside the curbside pickup, which is what Bond used to do, now being done by Wasteco, the picking up of the rubbish. And so that alignment needs to happen. But we have some councillors that are still hell-bent on people with disabilities not working in that sorting area. And I'll die in a ditch before I'm party to taking that work away. They will not get jobs elsewhere. So this is going to be an election issue as we go forward, because some of the people that might stand up for me and others have been very strong advocates for those people not retaining that contract. So this is going to be an election issue, but as we go through the year, we'll see where the numbers lie and who votes which way. I'm ex-area manager for IHC, or Idea Services. I know that you are not going to get 40 people out of that factory to suddenly get jobs elsewhere, and they certainly won't get full-time jobs. And people say, oh, it's a horrible place. Well, it's dirty, and there are rats in the place at times, and there are a lot of broken glass in the system, so they get cut hands. They wear gloves, but they still get cuts. And that's not ideal, and they had a major accident not too long ago with a forklift, but you can have that in any big business, freezing works, whatever. But at the end of the day, those people that work there absolutely love going there. There's a huge sense of family there. It comes at a cost, but it's a cost that our community should be prepared to pay.
I think there's a balance. You've got to have that balance.
Absolutely.
Totally.
So that's huge.
And then switching gears again, or topics, walking a place. Now, it's going to look superb by the time it's finished next year. And obviously with the new hotel, it's going to connect S Street back to like it used to be, and I think it's going to be great. Now, there's this myth about the wind tunnel. Well, let's wait and see.
Well, my biggest critic is at home. She was very much opposed to opening it up. And I've been down here recently. The wind science tells us that when you hit an object, the wind goes over it, but it comes back down to ground level. It goes down to the lowest pressure level. So it takes some time. And if you're at the Walkner end of S Street, on a blustery day, you'll get a bit of a blast. But you go further up the street, you don't. No different than the wind whistling through by the Kelvin Hotel. It gives you a bit of a shock when you walk past it. But at the end of the day, you've got to balance that out with. And I think the clock has been repaired now.
And relocated.
It's working. They're going to move it slightly and have a different casing on it, which makes it a bit more futuristic, which will be really nice. Jeff and his team are doing exceptionally good work. And there's a message there for us that when we get into joint ventures with developers, like we did with the mall, and like we're doing now with the Walkner Place, I think we get better results than doing it ourselves. It gives money to them, and they're far more cost effective and far more timely in getting stuff done.
And it's the way it's looking, because originally, what is it? I know we've talked about it before, but the figure originally thrown around by your council staff was $14 million for Walkner Place, just to fix that. Whereas it's down to what now? We've removed most there.
We're down to close to $4 million.
Is that split, or was that each?
No, it's $4 million that we will pay Jeff Thompson to do our side of that clock structure. So there's two parts. The other side of the clock that's his cost. Our cost is up this end. And it was $40.5 million. That was the cheapest option of the three. And when he said, look, I can do it for $4, which includes some contingency money, I might add, so long as you do the clock, I just about fell off my chair when he said that. And it made me concerned that we shouldn't be doing these big projects without a joint venture. The joint venture gives clarity.
It does.
And when the people like Jeff and the O'Donnells and things have got their own money in the game, they've got skin in the game, and they get things done and done on time.
And that's what needs to be done. Because one thing I find frustrating with council is everything goes so slowly, and it's never on budget.
Well, I mean, if you're working for council, you could argue that we are slow and methodical and take very few risks. The major players that do good work in our community, the Jeff Thompsons, the Gear Thompsons, the O'Donnell family, they are risk takers. And they, I guess, will take some risks sometimes that don't do well for them, but they get results. And look at that relationship we had with the O'Donnells in the mall. It was on time and pretty well on budget right through the middle of COVID. Nowhere else in the country has that happened. So it's a real credit to
Didn't
them.
they have MB staff or some people coming down and asking what the hell
How-
companies could do this?
How could you do it? I know.
Yeah.
And look, we've got the exact same scenario with the hospital in Dunedin.
Yep.
It should be a joint venture
That's right.
instead of the health department or Ministry of Health
Yep.
running it all. You bring the private sector players in and make sure the costs don't run away from you in the planning stage, you get good results.
Totally.
Yep.
Yep. Oh, it's going to be a big year next year, obviously, because it's a local body elections again. And obviously everyone's starting to throw the hat in the ring for the mayoralty. And one last thing, I guess this is the last topic, but on the mayoralty race, is it seems to be a pattern. A lot of existing councillors always now start to stand for the mayoralty as well, because it gives them a double whammy, gives them exposure twice, which in a lot of cases it helps them maybe scrape back on or get onto council, because in some cases I think a number of them wouldn't get back on, which is interesting.
There is that research that says that if you stand for mayor and don't get it, you do get some what I would refer to as sympathy votes for what's name. I'm not sure that any of the candidates are doing it for that reason. I think they're probably doing it because they genuinely want to be mayor. But I mean, it's no secret where my vote lies. Tom's been outstanding while I've been away, and he's different to me.
Yes, he's
He's
similar sort of
highly intelligent.
Yes. Yeah,
He's
well,
so well researched. He really is.
There's also a little bit more softer approach, a little bit. Yes.
He's more facilitated.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
Me, I can a little bit hiss and
You go with the
rush
X.
sometimes. and look, if I get something over the line 7-6, I'm okay.
Yeah.
Tom would probably want a bigger majority than that because he wants to buy people in, and that's okay. That's a different approach. But that man's history is far superior to mine around the world of corporate leadership. So, yep, I hope he does well.
Well, that's the New Year's edition of 90 Seconds Plus. Till next time, see you later.